close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, feel that steady, quiet drum beneath your ribs. It has been beating since before you were born, before you took your first breath, before you opened your eyes, before you knew what light was. Your heart was already working. One heart. That is all you were given. One single organ, roughly the size of your fist, pumping blood through 60,000 miles of vessels. It beats 100,000 times a day. It will beat, if you are lucky, somewhere around 3 billion times in a lifetime, and you will almost never think about it. Now imagine something. Imagine you had 3, not as a metaphor, not as poetry, 3 actual physical hearts inside your body, each one with its own purpose, its own rhythm, its own reason for existing. Imagine the strange symphony of that. 3 heartbeats layered on top of one another, slightly out of sync like a song you have never heard before. This is not science fiction. This is not mythology. This is the octopus. Somewhere beneath you right now, in water so deep that sunlight gave up trying to reach it long ago, an octopus is moving across the ocean floor. It is soft-bodied. It has no skeleton, no shell, no armor of any kind. It is by almost every measure one of the most vulnerable creatures in the sea. And yet it has 3 hearts, 9 brains, blue blood, the ability to change the color, texture, and pattern of its entire body in less time than it takes you to blink. It can unscrew jars from the inside. It can recognize your face. It can solve puzzles that would frustrate a small child. And it will, in all likelihood, be dead within 2 years. Tonight, we are going to sink slowly into the world of the octopus. There is no rush. There is nowhere else to be. Just the quiet dark of the ocean and one of the strangest, most beautiful animals that has ever lived. Imagine sinking through cold, dark water, deeper than sunlight can reach, deeper than sound seems to travel. The pressure builds around you, gently, like a hand pressing on every inch of your skin. The world above, the world of air and noise and light, falls away. Down here, it is quiet. Down here, the rules are different. This is where the octopus lives. Not all of them, of course. Some live in shallow tide pools, some in coral reefs bright with color. But the story of the octopus is really a story of the deep. It is a story of an animal that had to solve problems no land creature has ever faced. How to move without bones. How to think without a centralized nervous system. How to breathe in water so cold it would kill you in minutes. And it solved every single one of those problems in ways that seem, to our eyes, almost impossible. To understand why an octopus needs 3 hearts, you first need to understand a problem, the problem of blue blood. But we will get to that in a moment. First, the hearts themselves. An octopus has 2 smaller hearts, called branchial hearts, and 1 larger heart, called the systemic heart. The 2 branchial hearts sit near the gills. Their only job, their entire existence, is to take blood that has already traveled through the body, blood that is tired and spent and low on oxygen, and push it through the gills. The gills pull oxygen from the water, and the blood is refreshed. Think of the branchial hearts as 2 quiet workers in a room you never enter. They do not pump blood to the brain. They do not feed the muscles. They simply renew. They take what is exhausted and make it whole again. Over and over, without rest, without recognition. The third heart, the systemic heart, is the larger one. This is the heart that does what your heart does. It takes that freshly oxygenated blood from the gills and pushes it out to the rest of the body, to the arms, to the brain, to the muscles that squeeze and pull and reach and grip. 3 hearts, 2 for renewal, one for distribution. It sounds redundant, doesn't it? It sounds like over-engineering, like something designed by a committee that couldn't agree on a single plan. But it is not redundant, it is necessary. And the reason it is necessary is one of the most elegant things in all of biology. You see, the blood of an octopus does not carry oxygen the way yours does. Your blood is red because it uses hemoglobin, a protein built around iron. Iron binds oxygen efficiently. It is very good at its job, especially in warm environments, in the kind of mild, temperate world where mammals evolved. But the octopus did not evolve in a warm world. The octopus evolved in the deep ocean, in cold water. In places where the pressure is enormous and the temperature barely rises above freezing, and in those conditions, iron does not work as well. So the octopus uses something different. It uses copper. Their blood is blue. Not metaphorically. Not in the way we say someone is blue-blooded to mean they are aristocratic. Literally, genuinely blue. The color of a winter sky just before dark. If you could hold an octopus and it allowed you to, if you earned that kind of trust from an animal that trusts almost nothing and it were somehow cut, what would flow out would not look like blood as you know it. It would be pale blue, almost translucent, thin, watery, nothing like the thick, warm red you carry inside yourself. And yet it does the same job. It carries oxygen, it sustains life, it just does it differently. The protein is called hemocyanin. Where your hemoglobin uses iron to bind oxygen, hemocyanin uses copper. And copper, when it binds oxygen, turns blue. This is the same chemistry that turns the Statue of Liberty green over time. The same reason old pennies develop that pale turquoise patina. Copper and oxygen have a relationship, and the color of that relationship is blue. Now here is the thing about hemocyanin. It is less efficient than hemoglobin. Significantly less efficient. It carries less oxygen per unit of blood, it is slower, it is heavier. By almost every simple metric, it is worse at the job. But efficiency is not the only thing that matters. In the deep, cold ocean, hemocyanin has an advantage that hemoglobin does not. It remains stable. It continues to function in near-freezing temperatures where hemoglobin would begin to falter. It dissolves directly into the blood plasma rather than being packed into red blood cells, which means it works even when conditions are harsh and unforgiving. The trade-off is pressure. Because hemocyanin carries less oxygen, the blood must be pushed harder. It must circulate faster. The system needs more force, more power, more pumping. And so the octopus evolved 3 hearts. Not because 3 is a magic number, not because of some cosmic design, but because copper demands it. Because blue blood, wonderful as it is in the cold dark, needs more help getting where it's going. 2 hearts to oxygenate. 1 heart to distribute. A system built around the limitations of copper turned into something that works beautifully in an environment where nothing else could. There is something worth sitting with here. The octopus did not evolve 3 hearts because it was strong. It evolved 3 hearts because its blood was weak. The limitation became the architecture. The flaw became the design. Sometimes the most extraordinary solutions come not from abundance, but from having to work around what is missing. Here is something strange, something almost eerie. When an octopus swims, its systemic heart stops beating. Not slows down, stops. The main heart, the one responsible for pushing oxygenated blood to every organ and every limb, simply ceases to function during swimming. The 2 branchial hearts keep going, still pushing blood through the gills, still oxygenating. But the big heart, the one that matters most, goes silent. This is why octopuses prefer to crawl. They are not clumsy swimmers. They can jet through the water when they need to, pulling water into their mantle and expelling it in a burst of speed. But every moment they spend swimming is a moment their body is running without its main pump. Oxygen depletes, muscles fatigue. The animal essentially begins to suffocate from the inside. Imagine that. Imagine if every time you broke into a run, your heart stopped. You could do it. Your legs would still work, your lungs would still pull air, but the delivery system would shut down, and within seconds you would feel the cost of every single step. This is the life of the octopus. It can swim, but swimming is borrowing from a bank account that empties very quickly. So it crawls, it creeps, it flows across the ocean floor like something poured from a jar, finding its way through crevices and over stones with a patience that looks from the outside almost meditative. And flow is the right word, because the octopus has no bones, no skeleton of any kind. The only hard structure in its entire body is a small beak like a parrot's, hidden at the center where the arms converge. Everything else is soft, muscle and nerve and skin and water, which means an octopus can squeeze through any opening larger than that beak. A 50-pound giant Pacific octopus can pour itself through a hole the size of a quarter. It is as if the animal is made of liquid, as if it has decided that rigidity is a luxury it does not need. And there is something calming about that, something worth learning from. The octopus knows its limits. It does not pretend it can sprint through life without consequence. It moves deliberately. It conserves what it has. 3 hearts, and still it chooses the slow way. If 3 hearts seem extravagant, consider this. The octopus also has 9 brains. One central brain, located between its eyes, handles what you might think of as the executive functions: decision-making, memory, learning. The central brain is the coordinator, the one watching the whole picture. But each of the 8 arms has its own smaller brain, a dense cluster of neurons, a ganglion capable of independent processing. And when we say independent, we mean truly, genuinely independent. Each arm can taste. Each arm can touch and interpret what it is touching. Each arm can decide to reach for something, pull back from danger, explore a crevice, or manipulate an object without consulting the central brain at all. An octopus arm that has been severed from the body will continue to respond to stimuli. It will pull away from something sharp. It will move toward food. It will behave for a time as if it still belongs to something alive, because in a very real sense, it has its own mind. And the arms are even more extraordinary than that. Each one is lined with suckers, and each sucker contains tens of thousands of chemical receptors. When an octopus reaches into a dark crevice, it is not groping blindly. It is tasting everything it touches, the chemistry of the rock, the residue left behind by passing creatures. Whether something is food, whether something is dangerous, whether another octopus has been here recently. An octopus does not experience the world primarily through its eyes, the way you do. It experiences the world through touch and taste simultaneously across 8 arms, with hundreds of suckers firing information back to 8 separate brains. The richness of that sensory world is almost beyond imagining. Think about what this means for the experience of being an octopus. You have one body and one mind. Your experience of the world is unified. You feel the ground beneath your feet and the air on your face and the weight of your hands, all as part of one continuous experience of being you. An octopus may not have that unity. It may be, in some sense, a collective. A central intelligence coordinating with 8 semi-autonomous agents, each one feeding back its own stream of taste, texture, temperature, and pressure, each one capable of acting on its own while also being part of the whole. We do not know what that feels like. We may never know. But it is worth imagining. It is worth lying here in the dark and wondering what it would be like to have 8 arms, each one thinking for itself, each one tasting the world directly, each one both part of you and somehow its own small self. Now let your mind settle on the skin of the octopus, because what happens there is among the most remarkable things in the animal kingdom. Beneath the surface of an octopus's skin are millions of tiny organs called chromatophores. Each one is a small sac filled with pigment, surrounded by a ring of muscles. When the muscles contract, the sac expands and the color inside becomes visible. When the muscles relax, the sac shrinks and the color vanishes. Red, yellow, brown, orange, dark, light. Each chromatophore is controlled independently. Each one can fire in a fraction of a second, and there are millions of them, layered and stacked across the entire body. The result is something that does not really have a parallel in the human world. The octopus can change the color of its entire body in less than 200 milliseconds, faster than you can blink, faster than you can form a conscious thought. But it is not just color. Beneath the chromatophores are other cells called iridophores, which reflect light, creating metallic sheens and iridescent blues and greens. And beneath those are leucophores, which scatter all wavelengths equally, producing bright whites. And then there are the papillae, small, muscular bumps in the skin that can raise and flatten on command, changing the texture of the body's surface. An octopus resting on a coral reef can make its skin bumpy and rough. An octopus gliding over sand can make its skin perfectly smooth. Color, pattern, texture, brightness, all of it changing simultaneously in real time across the entire body. Scientists have described this as the biological equivalent of a liquid television. Every inch of skin is a pixel. Every pixel is independently controlled. And here is the part that keeps researchers awake at night. Octopuses are colorblind, or at least they appear to be. They have only one type of photoreceptor in their eyes, which should mean they see the world in shades of gray, and yet they match colors with breathtaking precision. They can replicate the exact hue of a coral, the specific shade of sand, the dappled pattern of light filtering through kelp. How they do this remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of marine biology. There is evidence that their skin itself may be able to sense light, that the chromatophores may be doing their own seeing, independent of the eyes. A creature that cannot see color, painting itself in perfect color, using skin that might have its own kind of vision. Let that settle. There is no need to understand it completely. Some things are more beautiful as questions than as answers. Intelligence is a difficult word. We use it carelessly, and we often use it to mean something that looks like us. But the octopus is intelligent in ways that look nothing like us. And that may be what makes it so fascinating. Octopuses use tools. The veined octopus, found in the tropical waters of the Pacific, collects coconut shell halves from the ocean floor. It carries them, stacked beneath its body, sometimes walking awkwardly on its arms for considerable distances. When it feels threatened, it assembles the two halves around itself, creating a shelter. This is forward planning. This is carrying a burden now for a benefit later. This is something we once believed only humans did. they solve puzzles. In laboratories around the world, octopuses have learned to open screw-top jars from the inside. They have navigated mazes. They have figured out how to turn off lights by squirting water at the bulbs. In one famous case, an octopus at the University of Otago in New Zealand learned how to take photographs of researchers by pressing a lever on a camera. It wasn't trained to do this. It watched and it learned. They recognize faces, not just the general shape of a human, but specific individuals. An octopus at the Seattle Aquarium consistently squirted water at one particular staff member, and only that staff member every time she passed the tank. It was not random, it was personal. They escape. Octopuses are, by all accounts, extraordinary escape artists. They have been documented leaving their tanks, crossing laboratory floors, entering other tanks to eat the fish inside, and then returning to their own tanks before morning. At the National Aquarium of New Zealand, an octopus named Inky found a small gap in the top of his enclosure, squeezed through it, crossed the floor, found a drain pipe that led to the ocean, and disappeared. He was never found. There is something thrilling about this, something that goes beyond simple problem solving. This is an animal that observes its environment, identifies opportunities, and acts on them with what can only be described as intention. And perhaps most surprisingly, they play. Researchers have observed octopuses in aquariums repeatedly blowing empty pill bottles across their tanks using jets of water, pushing the bottle to the far side, waiting for the current to bring it back, and then pushing it again. There was no food reward, no survival benefit. The octopus was, by every reasonable definition, playing, entertaining itself. Passing the time in the way that only a mind with something like curiosity or boredom would bother to do. Play is considered one of the hallmarks of higher intelligence. We see it in dolphins, in crows, in primates, finding it in an invertebrate, a creature without a spine, without any of the brain structures we associate with complex thought, that changes how we have to think about what intelligence even is. And all of this intelligence evolved completely separately from ours. The last common ancestor we share with the octopus lived roughly 750 million years ago, and it was a flatworm. Everything the octopus knows, everything it can do, evolved independently along a completely different branch of the tree of life. Their intelligence is not a lesser version of ours. It is a different version entirely. A parallel experiment in consciousness, run by evolution in a world without light, without bones, without warmth. We are not the only way to be smart. We are just the way we are most familiar with. There is a sadness at the center of the octopus. A quiet, unavoidable sadness that makes everything else about the animal more beautiful and more terrible at the same time. Most octopuses live between 1 and 5 years. Many live only 12 to 18 months. An animal this intelligent, this capable, this extraordinary, and it is gone before it has barely begun. They do not pass on what they learn. Octopuses are solitary. They do not live in groups, do not teach their young, do not build cultures or traditions. Every octopus that hatches starts from nothing. Every puzzle-solving genius, every escape artist, every creature that learned to recognize a human face, all of that knowledge dies with the individual. The next generation begins as blank as the first. This is profoundly different from almost every other intelligent animal we know. Dolphins teach, crows teach, elephants remember and pass down routes and knowledge across generations, but the octopus exists in a kind of intellectual solitude that is almost incomprehensible. And then there is the mother. When a female octopus lays her eggs, she enters the final chapter of her life. She finds a sheltered place, a den, a crevice, a hollow in the rock. She attaches her eggs to the ceiling in long, delicate strands, thousands of them, sometimes hundreds of thousands, and then she stays. She does not leave. She does not eat. For weeks, for months, sometimes for years, she guards those eggs. She cleans them with her arms, gently blowing water across them to keep them oxygenated. She fends off predators. She repairs damage. In 2007, scientists observed a deep-sea octopus off the coast of California begin brooding her eggs at a depth of nearly a mile. They returned, again and again over the course of 4.5 years. And she was still there. The same octopus in the same spot guarding her eggs for 53 months. She had not eaten in all that time. Her skin had become pale and slack. Her body was deteriorating. She was dying, and she knew it. And she stayed. When the eggs finally hatch, the mother's body gives out. She has used everything she has. Her muscles have broken down. Her organs have begun to fail. The glands behind her eyes, the optic glands, trigger a kind of programmed self-destruction. It is called senescence, and it is merciless. The babies emerge into the ocean, tiny and translucent, no bigger than grains of rice, and their mother drifts away. The 3 hearts, one by one, stop beating. She will never see what they become. She will never know if they survived. She gave them everything, and everything was exactly what it cost. There is no evolutionary reason for her to feel anything during those months of guarding. No reason, strictly speaking, for the devotion to hurt. And yet, when you watch the footage, when you see her gently cleaning each strand of eggs with the tips of her arms, turning them slowly to make sure every one receives oxygen, you cannot help but wonder, does she know what she is doing? Does she understand, in whatever way an octopus understands things, that she is trading her life for theirs? We will never have the answer to that. But the question itself feels important. The question itself is a kind of honoring. Let us end somewhere gentle. In 2021, researchers in Brazil filmed octopuses while they slept. What they saw was extraordinary. The sleeping octopus changed color. Waves of pigment rolled across its body. Chromatophores fired and relaxed in patterns that looked unmistakably like the patterns of waking behavior. Dark, mottled camouflage. Sudden flashes of white. The rippling display of a hunting sequence. The scientists proposed that octopuses may experience something like dreaming. That during sleep, their brains replay the events of the day, and their bodies respond as if those events are happening again. We cannot know what an octopus dreams about. We cannot crawl inside a mind that's different, a mind split across 9 brains, a mind that tastes the world through its arms, that paints its own skin without seeing color, that solves problems and recognizes faces and plans escapes, and then dies before its 2nd birthday. But imagine just for a moment what it might be like. Imagine dreaming with 3 hearts beating inside you, 2 of them steady and small, refreshing your blue blood through the gills, 1 of them large and strong, pushing life to every arm, every sucker, every chromatophore. Imagine dreaming in color you have never seen through your eyes, only felt through your skin. Imagine the memory of a reef at night, the taste of a crab shell, the cold pressure of deep water, the chemical trace of another octopus passing through hours ago. Imagine being so intelligent that you can open jars, read faces, plan escapes, and yet having no one to tell. No parent who taught you, no child who will remember you. just the brief, bright fact of your own existence, burning in the dark water like a match struck in a cathedral. There is something the octopus teaches us, if we are willing to learn it. Something about the relationship between beauty and brevity. About how the most extraordinary things are not always the things that last the longest. A life does not have to be long to be profound. A mind does not have to be human to be brilliant. A heart, it turns out, does not even have to be singular. Sometimes it takes three, working together, to keep something this remarkable alive. There are over 300 known species of octopus. They live in every ocean on the planet, from the freezing waters of the Antarctic to the warm shallows of the Caribbean. From tide pools you could wade into to trenches so deep we have barely begun to explore them. Each species is slightly different. Some are no bigger than your thumbnail. The giant Pacific octopus can stretch its arms 16 feet across, but every single one of them shares the same basic architecture. 3 hearts, blue blood, 9 brains, a body that can squeeze through any gap larger than its beak, which is the only hard part of its entire body. A mind that solves problems it was never taught to solve. Every single one of them lives fast and dies young. And every single one of them, in its own small way, is a quiet argument that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we usually give it credit for. Somewhere right now, in water so deep it has never been touched by sunlight, an octopus is crawling slowly across the floor of the ocean. Its 3 hearts are beating. Its 8 arms are tasting the darkness. Its skin is shifting through colors it may never see. It does not know you are thinking about it. It does not know that anyone, anywhere, finds it beautiful. But it is. It is one of the most beautiful things that has ever lived. And tonight, while you sleep, it will keep going. Quietly, deliberately.